"You're not coming with us, Dad. We need this time together, and don't worry, you can afford it." Those words, scribbled on a note left on my kitchen table, shattered me more than any argument ever could. On Christmas morning, instead of family warmth, I found only emptiness and the realization that the lavish vacation I'd planned and paid for was their escape route, not a gift. I stood paralyzed, hurt, and humiliated as the truth sank in. I wasn't family. I was just their funding. But as their laughter echoed from a mountain resort bought with my money, I began gathering every bank statement, every loan document, every promissory note they thought I'd forgotten. Quietly, I set my plan in motion. Credit cards? Canceled. Loans called in. Legal letters delivered. One by one, I watched their perfect getaway unravel. Panic replaced their smug smiles. Regret replaced entitlement. When Amanda finally called, her voice shaking with desperation, I realized the lesson had landed. This time, I wasn't the one left powerless. In the end, betrayal comes with a price, and I was done paying the bill. I must have sat at the table for 10, maybe 15 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The house was so quiet I could hear every tick of the clock, every soft hum of the refrigerator. The silence didn't comfort me, it accused me. I reached for my phone, hands still shaking. I called Amanda. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Amanda. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." Her cheerful voice felt like a slap in the face. I hung up. I tried Jason, straight to voicemail. "Martin?" Nothing. "Ellen?" No answer. Each call made me feel smaller, more desperate. I dialed Amanda again, then Jason, then Amanda a third time, hoping, irrationally, that someone would pick up, or that this was all a misunderstanding, a cruel joke that would end with them bursting through the door, laughing. But there was nothing. Only silence, and the echo of my own voice in an empty house. I wandered back through the hallway, past the photos of Christmases gone by, Amanda in her red pajamas, Jason grinning with a mug of cocoa, Martin and Ellen holding hands by the fireplace. I called out their names, my voice cracking. "Amanda? Jason? Martin? Ellen?" Only the ticking clock answered me. I slumped against the wall, phone still in my hand. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. A phone charging on Amanda's old nightstand. Her phone. In their rush to leave, she'd forgotten it. For a moment, I hesitated. It felt wrong to go through her things. But then I remembered the note, the silence, the cold cinnamon rolls, and the emptiness pressing in on all sides. Privacy didn't seem to matter anymore. I picked up the phone. The lock screen was her birthday, a number burned into my memory. The screen lit up with a flood of unread messages and notifications. I scrolled through her contacts, her texts, looking for any clue, any sign that this was a mistake. That's when I saw it. A group chat, pinned to the top. Family trip. I opened it, my breath caught in my throat. The most recent message was from the night before. "Amanda, everything's packed. We'll leave as soon as he's asleep. Don't forget the tickets." Jason, "Got it. Uber's scheduled. He won't know until we're gone." Martin, "I still feel bad. He spent so much on this." Ellen, "He'll be fine. He always bounces back. Besides, it's not like he can't afford it." Amanda, "Honestly, I just want him to stop hovering. This trip is for us, not for him." Jason, "He'll get over it. He's just our ATM." I froze. I had to read that line again. He's just our ATM. A wave of nausea rose in my stomach. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I scrolled further up the chat, reading more lines that cut deeper with every word. Jokes about my neediness. Complaints about how I make everything about myself. Plans to leave without me, all spelled out in brutal detail. Had they really seen me that way all along? A burden, an obstacle, a source of money, nothing more. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world blurred. The room swam in a haze of heartbreak and humiliation. My daughter, my only daughter, had called me her ATM. The man who paid her tuition, her wedding, her rent, who baked cinnamon rolls and wrapped gifts, and tried, year after year, to keep this family whole. How long had I been this invisible? How long had I been funding my own loneliness? I sat down on Amanda's bed, the phone trembling in my hand, the group chat burning on the screen. I realized then that the note wasn't the whole betrayal. It was just the beginning. The real wound was here, spelled out in their own words. They thought I'd never find out. They thought I'd just go on paying, forgiving, pretending. They were wrong. I must have sat at the table for 10, maybe 15 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The house was so quiet I could hear every tick of the clock, every soft hum of the refrigerator. The silence didn't comfort me, it accused me. I reached for my phone, hands still shaking. I called Amanda. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Amanda. Leave a message and I'll get back to you." Her cheerful voice felt like a slap in the face. I hung up. I tried Jason, straight to voicemail. Martin, nothing. Ellen, no answer. Each call made me feel smaller, more desperate. I dialed Amanda again, then Jason, then Amanda a third time, hoping irrationally that someone would pick up, or that this was all a misunderstanding, a cruel joke that would end with them bursting through the door laughing. But there was nothing, only silence and the echo of my own voice in an empty house. I wandered back through the hallway, past the photos of Christmases gone by, Amanda in her red pajamas, Jason grinning with a mug of cocoa, Martin and Ellen holding hands by the fireplace. I called out their names, my voice cracking. Amanda? Jason? Martin? Ellen? Only the ticking clock answered me. I slumped against the wall, phone still in my hand. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. A phone charging on Amanda's old nightstand. Her phone. In their rush to leave, she'd forgotten it. For a moment, I hesitated. It felt wrong to go through her things. But then I remembered the note, the silence, the cold cinnamon rolls, and the emptiness pressing in on all sides. Privacy didn't seem to matter anymore. I picked up the phone. The lock screen was her birthday. A number burned into my memory. The screen lit up with a flood of unread messages and notifications. I scrolled through her contacts, her texts, looking for any clue, any sign that this was a mistake. That's when I saw it. A group chat pinned to the top. Family trip. I opened it, my breath caught in my throat. The most recent message was from the night before. Amanda, everything's packed. We'll leave as soon as he's asleep. Don't forget the tickets. Jason, got it. Uber scheduled. He won't know until we're gone. I still feel bad. He spent so much on this. He'll be fine. He always bounces back. Besides, it's not like he can't afford it.
Honestly, I just want him to stop hovering. This trip is for us, not for him.
He'll get over it. He's just our ATM. I froze. I had to read that line again. He's just our ATM. A wave of nausea rose in my stomach. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I scrolled further up the chat, reading more lines that cut deeper with every word. Jokes about my neediness, complaints about how I make everything about myself, plans to leave without me, all spelled out in brutal detail. Had they really seen me that way all along? A burden, an obstacle, a source of money, nothing more. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world blurred. The room swam in a haze of heartbreak and humiliation. My daughter, my only daughter, had called me her ATM. The man who paid her tuition, her wedding, her rent, who baked cinnamon rolls and wrapped gifts, and tried, year after year, to keep this family whole. How long had I been this invisible? How long had I been funding my own loneliness? I sat down on Amanda's bed, the phone trembling in my hand, the group chat burning on the screen. I realized then that the note wasn't the whole betrayal, it was just the beginning. The real wound was here, spelled out in their own words. They thought I'd never find out. They thought I'd just go on paying, forgiving, pretending. They were wrong. I sat on Amanda's bed for what felt like hours, staring at the phone, the group chat open and burning holes in my chest. My head buzzed with their words. "He's just our ATM. He'll get over it," repeating again and again like a cruel mantra. I tried to remember the last time Amanda had hugged me just because she wanted to, not because she needed something. It's strange, the things you remember when your world falls apart. I looked around her old room, cluttered with trophies, childhood photos, the faded poster of her first summer camp. There were pictures of us at the zoo, her with a gap-toothed grin on my shoulders, her tiny hand wrapped in mine at her graduation. I'd worked overtime to afford that college. 4 years, $180,000 in tuition, books, and dorm fees. I remembered the tears streaming down her face the day she graduated, her promise, "Dad, I'll make you proud." I'd believed her, but now every memory was tainted. Every sacrifice felt like a bad investment. I stood up and wandered the hallway, my legs heavy, the silence oppressive. My eyes caught the wedding photo in the living room. Amanda in her white dress, Jason grinning, Martin and Ellen dabbing at their eyes. I'd written every check. $65,000 for a fairy tale wedding. $85,000 for the down payment on their apartment. Another $35,000 for Jason's new truck. I'd structured it all as loans, kept every paper, every signature, because I thought it was smart business. But the truth was, I just wanted to believe I mattered. I remembered Christmases when Amanda was little, how she'd wake me up at dawn, drag me down the stairs, squealing about Santa. Back then, it was about joy, not money. Back then, she needed me. She wanted me. Somewhere along the way, that changed. I moved to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee, hands still shaking. The untouched cinnamon rolls sat on the counter, a sad monument to hope. I forced myself to eat one, tasting nothing but bitterness. Was this my fault? Had I made it too easy? Was I so desperate to be needed that I bought my own irrelevance? I glanced at the stack of unopened gifts, each one carefully chosen, wrapped and labeled. I remembered the hours I spent searching for the perfect sweater, the right book, the little details only a father would know. Gifts that now felt like bribes. I tried to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. All I felt was cold, hollow, used. If I was just their ATM, it was time to close the account. The thought landed like a stone in my gut. I stood up, steadier than I'd felt all morning, and walked to my office. The familiar smell of books and old paperwork grounded me, reminded me who I was before I became just the bank. I opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. Inside were years of receipts, contracts, and promissory notes, every dollar I'd ever loaned, every agreement Amanda and Jason signed with a smile. I ran my fingers over the folders, feeling the weight of my own generosity. No more. I was done paying for my own abandonment. I started pulling out the files, stacking them neatly on my desk. For the first time since I'd read Amanda's note, I felt something other than pain. I felt resolved. They thought I'd keep funding their lives no matter what. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. I sat at my desk, surrounded by mountains of paperwork, folders thick with receipts, promissory notes, apartment loan agreements, credit card authorizations. For years, I'd kept meticulous records, telling myself it was smart business, even with family. In truth, I think I just wanted evidence that I mattered, that all my giving meant something. One by one, I opened each folder. College tuition, $180,000. Amanda's psychology degree, 4 years, every semester billed in my name. I saw the old graduation photo tucked behind the receipts, her smile bright, her arms around my neck, promising to make me proud. Next folder, the wedding, $65,000. The venue, the flowers, the band, the photographer. I remembered Amanda's teary phone call the week before the wedding, begging for an upgrade. "Dad, it'll only happen once. Please." I'd written the check with a lump in my throat, convinced this was what fathers did. Down payment on the apartment, $85,000. I'd structured it as a formal loan, not a gift. Jason had signed the promissory note, bold and confident, promising to pay me back as soon as we're on our feet. That was 3 years ago. Since then, another $35,000 for Jason's truck, co-signed by me. Credit cards, 3, with limits high enough to cover emergencies. I paid the bills every month. I remembered the late-night calls. "Dad, can you help us with rent? The car broke down again. We're short on groceries this month." Each request came with gratitude, sometimes real, sometimes forced. "We couldn't do this without you, Dad. You're a lifesaver." But the thanks never lasted long. The needs always returned. I flipped through letters, emails, receipts, each one a reminder of how I'd tried to buy love, or at least security. I thought of the Christmas mornings, the birthdays, the little surprises I'd hidden for Amanda throughout her childhood. I'd convinced myself that my generosity would hold us together. In the end, all it did was make me easy to use and easier to leave behind. No more. I was done paying for my own abandonment. I picked up the phone and dialed Michael James, my old friend and lawyer. The phone rang twice before he answered, his voice steady and familiar. "Daniel, what's going on? You sound different." I took a breath, my resolve solidifying with every word. "Michael, I need to review those loan agreements, the apartment, the truck, the credit cards. I want to start calling in what's owed, and I want to cancel every credit card they use immediately." There was a pause on the line. "Daniel, are you sure? This is a big step." "I'm sure. I've been a doormat long enough. It's time to hold them accountable." Michael's voice softened. "I'll get started on the paperwork tonight. Daniel, you know you don't have to do this alone, right?" I looked at the mountain of evidence on my desk, years of love, trust, and misplaced hope, all reduced to line items and legal documents. "I know, Michael, but for the first time in years, I actually feel like I'm standing up for myself." He hesitated, then said, "It's time." As I hung up, I realized I wasn't just closing accounts. I was closing a chapter of my life, a chapter defined by giving, forgiving, and waiting for a gratitude that never came. Tonight, that chapter ended. The next morning, for the first time in years, I woke up with a sense of purpose. I didn't make coffee. I didn't bother with breakfast. I sat down at my desk, surrounded by the mountain of receipts and contracts, and opened my laptop. First, the credit cards. I dialed the bank, my voice steady and cold as I walked the agent through each account. I need to remove Amanda Morgan and Jason Carter as authorized users immediately. Yes, effective today. No, I do not want them notified until the cards are already locked. There was a pause, then the soft click of keys. "It's done, Mr. Morgan. They'll receive a notification the next time they try to use the cards." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of satisfaction and regret. For years, those cards had paid for everything: groceries, gas, vacations, emergencies, both real and imagined. I remembered Amanda's frantic calls. "Dad, my card isn't working. Can you transfer some money?" Jason's texts in the middle of the night. "Hey boss, the payment bounced. Need a quick loan." I never said no. Not once. Today, I did. Next, I sent formal demand letters for the apartment loan and the truck. I attached scanned copies of the signed promissory notes, spelling out the 30-day repayment deadline. I CC'd Michael on every email, feeling the weight of legal authority behind every keystroke. For the first time, it felt like I was speaking their language: terms, contracts, non-negotiable boundaries. By noon, everything was in motion. The bank confirmations pinged my inbox one by one. Credit cards locked. Notifications sent. Demand letters delivered. It was all business now. That's when my phone rang. Amanda's name flashed on the screen. I took a breath, steeled myself, and answered. Dad, what's going on? My card just got declined at the grocery store. The bank says I'm no longer on the account. Her voice was shrill, panicked, laced with accusation. I removed you as an authorized user, I said quietly. The cards are mine, Amanda. They always were. There was a stunned silence. Then, you can't just cut us off. We're family. For years, family meant I paid for everything and asked for nothing. That ends now. She started to cry. Real tears or just shock, I couldn't tell. We're struggling, Dad. You know that. Please, just help us this once. I've helped you 1,000 times. This time, I'm helping myself. She begged, pleaded, her words tumbling over each other. But I didn't budge. Not this time. Finally, I said, you'll need to figure it out, Amanda. I can't be your lifeline anymore. I ended the call, my heart pounding, a strange sense of relief washing over me. I stared out the window, watching the bare branches sway in the winter wind, feeling both lighter and lonelier than I'd felt in years. My phone vibrated again. Jason. I let it ring. Jason called 5, 6 times in a row. Each time, I let it go to voicemail. I sat at my desk, staring at the phone, my nerves tight as piano wire. The messages came in waves. First, pleading, "Come on, man, don't do this, we're family." Then, accusing, "You're just trying to ruin us, aren't you?" Finally, threatening, "You're going to regret this, Daniel. You need us, Daniel. You need us as much as we need you." I read every word, feeling the familiar twist of guilt in my stomach. For years, I'd let these emotions steer my life. Not anymore. A hard knock rattled my front door. I stood, checked my security cameras. Jason's truck in the driveway, his frame pacing angrily on the porch. Hard in my throat, I walked to the panel, hit record on the entryway camera, and opened the door just enough to keep the chain in place. Jason's eyes were wild, jaw clenched. "You can't do this," he spat. "You can't just cut us off and hide behind lawyers." "I'm not hiding, Jason," I said, voice steady. "I'm protecting myself." He leaned closer, dropping his voice to a harsh whisper. "Old men who live alone in big houses. Bad things happen. Accidents, break-ins. You really want to risk that?" I felt the cold crawl up my spine, but I didn't flinch. "You're threatening me now?" He smirked. "Just giving you a reality check. It's a dangerous world, Daniel. People like you, easy targets." I lifted my phone, hit record, making sure he saw the red light. "Say that again, Jason." His face shifted, a flicker of doubt crossing his bravado. "You can't record me without permission. You're on my property, and everything's being backed up to the cloud. If anything happens to me, the police will know exactly where to start." He hesitated, fists clenching and unclenching. "You're making a mistake. You need family. Sooner or later, you'll be all alone, and then what?" "I'd rather be alone than live in fear of my own family," I said, my voice cold as ice. Just then, flashing lights painted the snowy street. Officer Reed stepped out of his patrol car, hand on his belt. "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" I nodded. "My son-in-law just threatened me, officer. I have video and audio evidence." Jason backed away, hands up. "I didn't threaten anyone. We're just having a family argument." Officer Reed's eyes narrowed. "Sir, I need you to leave the property now. If you contact Mr. Morgan again, we'll pursue charges." Jason glared at me, but the fight was gone from his eyes. He stumped back to his truck and sped off, snow spraying behind his tires. The officer took my statement, copied the footage, and promised to check in later. When the house was quiet again, I locked the door, checked every window, then sat on the couch, heart pounding. I'd been threatened before, but this time I was ready. I glanced at the security monitor, my reflection small but steady in the screen. For the first time, I didn't see a victim. I saw a man who finally refused to be afraid. That night, the house felt different. Not just quieter, emptier, but somehow safer too. I double-checked every window, every lock. I sat at the kitchen table, tracing the grain of the wood, listening to the wind batter the old siding. The adrenaline of confrontation faded, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. I found myself talking to my wife's picture, the way I used to after she died. "You always said I was too soft, too forgiving." Her smile, frozen in a faded frame, seemed wiser now. "You also told me never to let anyone, family or not, walk all over me." I wished she could see me now. I wished I could tell her how hard this was. I made myself a cup of tea, the way she liked it, 2 sugars, a splash of milk. I sat in the dark kitchen, letting the memories drift in. Christmas mornings when Amanda was a child, her small hands clutching my sleeve, squealing about stockings and cinnamon rolls. Back then, love was simple. Back then, I was needed. But now, the house was a museum to a vanished life. The gifts under the tree, the cinnamon rolls on the counter, all relics of a family that no longer existed. I barely slept. At dawn, sunlight crept through the blinds, painting pale stripes on the floor. My phone chimed, a new email from Michael James. I opened it with trembling hands. "You won. The court ruled in your favor. Credit card obligations terminated. Apartment loan must be repaid in full. Truck loan callable. Let me know if you want to proceed with asset seizure if they default." I read the email 3 times, barely believing it. It was all official now. Every dollar, every favor, every "just this once, Dad" had become a legal line in the sand. The Carter family was on the hook, and this time there was no more lifeline. Jason would lose his truck if he missed a payment. The apartment was in jeopardy. Their credit, their comfort, their easy rides, all gone. I set my phone down and stared out the window. The world looked exactly the same. Bare trees, silent streets, distant clouds. But everything had changed. For the first time, I was truly free. Free from their needs, their demands, their betrayal. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. The house was quiet, but it wasn't peaceful. I'd won, but the victory felt cold. Was this what freedom was supposed to feel like? Or was it just another kind of loneliness? As I sat there, lost in thought, the doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected in the morning stillness. I stood, coffee mug in hand, heart thudding in my chest. Was it Amanda, come to beg, Jason, back for another round, or just the postman bringing news of debts and consequences? Either way, I braced myself, because this new chapter, whatever it brought, was mine to face. The doorbell rang again. I paused a moment before opening, bracing myself for whatever storm waited on the other side. Amanda was standing on my porch, shoulders hunched against the cold, eyes rimmed red. Jason hovered behind her, hands stuffed in his pockets, face tight with anxiety. Martin and Ellen looked smaller than I remembered, weighed down by exhaustion and something like shame. For a second, none of us spoke. Then Amanda's voice broke the silence, small and raw. "Dad, we need to talk." I nodded and stepped aside. They filed into the living room, glancing around as if searching for the ghosts of the family we used to be. Amanda sat on the edge of the couch, twisting her hands together. Jason stood, arms folded, shifting from foot to foot. Martin and Ellen looked smaller than I remembered, weighed down by exhaustion and something like shame. For a second, none of us spoke. Then Amanda's voice broke the silence, small and raw. "Dad, we need to talk." I nodded and stepped aside. They filed into the living room, glancing around as if searching for the ghosts of the family we used to be. Amanda sat on the edge of the couch, twisting her hands together. Jason stood, arms folded, shifting from foot to foot. Martin and Ellen perched on the far end, silent, eyes on the floor. "We're in trouble," Amanda started, her voice trembling. "They canceled the apartment lease. We have nowhere to go. The bank's coming for Jason's truck. We're out of money." Jason's voice cut in, rough. You didn't have to do this, Daniel. You could have just let things go. Martin cleared his throat. We're family, son. We all make mistakes. Surely there's a way we can work this out. Ellen dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Please, Daniel, we're desperate. I looked at each of them, seeing not the people I'd once loved unconditionally, but a group of adults who had spent years taking and never giving back. You had every chance, I said quietly. You made your choices. Amanda started to cry. Dad, please. I know we messed up. I know we hurt you. But we're family. Doesn't that mean anything? I remembered the group chat, the jokes at my expense, the way they'd left me alone on Christmas morning after I'd paid for everything. I remembered how it felt to be invisible, to be useful, but never loved. Family means honesty, I said. It means respect. You only came back because you ran out of options. Jason's face twisted with resentment. So that's it? You're just going to watch us lose everything? No, I replied. I'm going to watch you take responsibility for once. They pleaded, argued, tried every trick I'd heard 100 times before. But something in me had changed. I wasn't angry anymore, just empty and finally free. After a while, they realized I wouldn't budge. One by one, they stood, gathering their coats, shuffling to the door. Amanda lingered, her hand reaching for mine, but I stepped back. They left without another word, the echo of their footsteps fading down the walkway. As I closed the door, I felt a strange relief, like a weight finally lifting. I leaned against the wood, eyes closed, letting go of the last thread tying me to their need. When I opened my eyes, I noticed something on the porch. A single envelope, Amanda's handwriting on the front. I sat on the edge of my couch, the envelope trembling in my hands. Amanda's handwriting looked different than usual, less careful, almost shaky. For a long moment, I just stared at it, unsure if I wanted to see what was inside. Part of me hoped for an apology, some sign that she finally understood. Another part braced for one last manipulation. I slid a finger under the flap and pulled out the letter. Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from us, but I have to try. We're living in a friend's trailer now, 5 of us in one tiny space. Jason can't find work. Martin and Ellen are struggling. I'm working 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. We're barely making it. I know we hurt you. I know we made mistakes. But family should help each other, right? Maybe you could send a little something, just enough to get us into an apartment or help cover groceries. I promise this isn't like before. We've learned our lesson. Please, Dad, I miss you. Love, Amanda. I read it twice, searching for the words I needed, real remorse, understanding, maybe even gratitude. What I found was desperation, but not regret. Amanda still believed family meant rescue, not responsibility. She still saw my forgiveness as a safety net, not a boundary. I thought of every letter, every phone call, every tearful promise she'd made over the years. I'll change, Dad. This time it's different. I swear I'll make it up to you. Each time I'd believed her. Each time I'd paid the price. Not anymore. I folded the letter carefully and slid it into the bottom drawer of my desk alongside all the old receipts and contracts. This time there would be no reply, no quick fix, no rescue. I stood up and walked through the quiet house, letting my footsteps echo in the empty rooms. Once, this silence had felt like punishment. Now it felt like space, a blank canvas for something new. Desperation sounded different than regret, and for the first time, I could tell the difference. I walked to the window, unlatched it, and pushed it open. Cold morning air flooded in, crisp and clean. Sunlight spilled across the floorboards, illuminating every corner. For the first time, I let it. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the open window. For the first time in months, I didn't dread the day ahead. I made coffee, took a shower, and found myself humming an old song as I cleaned the kitchen. The house still echoed with emptiness, but it no longer felt like a tomb. It felt like possibility. Around noon, my phone buzzed, a text from Rachel Green, my neighbor across the street. "Hey Daniel, we're having a few friends over for dinner tonight. Would love if you could join us. No pressure, just good food and company." I stared at her message for a long moment. My first instinct was to politely decline, to retreat into my old habits of isolation. But something inside me shifted. For the first time in years, I wanted to say yes. I texted back, "I'd love to. What can I bring?" She replied almost instantly, "Just yourself, and maybe that famous cinnamon bread you bake." I found the recipe card, battered and stained, tucked in the back of a kitchen drawer. As I mixed the dough, the smell of cinnamon and sugar filled the air, warm and familiar. I remembered making it for Amanda when she was little, her face lighting up as she licked the spoon. The memory brought no pain, just a soft kind of gratitude. That evening, I walked across the street carrying a still warm loaf. Rachel greeted me with a hug, introducing me to her husband and their kids, who were already bickering over board games in the living room. The conversation flowed easily. Stories of work, travel, the little frustrations and victories that make up everyday life. No one asked me for anything except my company. After dinner, Rachel's husband invited me to join his book club at the library next week. One of their friends mentioned a hiking group that met on Saturdays. I found myself saying yes, surprising even myself. Later, as I walked home under the stars, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. The world was still uncertain, the future still uncharted, but I was no longer trapped by the past or chained to the demands of people who saw me only as a provider. When I reached my front door, I caught my reflection in the glass. Older, yes, but somehow lighter, stronger. For the first time in years, I recognized the man looking back at me. Over the next week, my days filled with things I chose for myself. I went to the library's book club with Rachel's husband, discussed a novel I actually enjoyed, not just pretended to like for Amanda's sake. I joined a Saturday morning hiking group and found myself laughing at stories from people who barely knew my past. I even signed up for a watercolor class at the community center, remembering how much I'd love to draw before life got complicated. Michael James called one afternoon just to check in. "You sound different," he said after a long pause. "Lighter." "I feel different," I admitted. "It's strange. I thought I'd be lost without them, but I'm not. I'm just free." He chuckled. "That's what happens when you stop carrying everyone else's burdens." Later, I called Karen, my cousin. She listened as I told her about the book club, the hikes, the art class. "You deserve this, Daniel," she said. "You always did." One rainy evening, I took down the Christmas tree, carefully packing away the ornaments Amanda made as a child, folding the stockings, storing the unopened gifts in the attic. I sorted through old photos, choosing which to keep on display. Not out of grief or obligation, but out of genuine affection for the years that built me. The silence in the house felt different now. It was the quiet of possibility, not punishment. I filled it with music, with the scratch of a paintbrush on paper, with the occasional laughter of new friends dropping by for coffee. On Sunday morning, I sat at the kitchen table with a blank calendar in front of me. For the first time in my adult life, there was nothing penciled in for anyone else. No family obligations, no emergency transfers, no forced celebrations. Just space, just time, just me. I picked up a pen and wrote in the first square, "Art class, 7 p.m. In the next, hike with the group. Below that, coffee with Rachel. And on a whim, call the travel agent, ask about Italy." This was my life now, unwritten, unclaimed, and finally mine. As I closed the calendar, my phone buzzed, a message from Rachel. "We're planning a weekend trip to the coast. Want to come?" I smiled, heart pounding with a nervous excitement. For the first time, I replied without hesitation, "Count me in." Some stories don't end with reconciliation. Sometimes healing means choosing yourself. I used to believe every family story had to end with forgiveness, that no matter what, blood would always be thicker than water. And love, if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, could fix anything. I spent decades banking on that belief, writing check after check, offering second, third, 20th chances, patching over betrayals with hope. But life, I've learned, isn't always a Hallmark movie. Not every wound heals with a hug. Not every apology is enough. Some scars teach you, painfully but thoroughly, that loving someone doesn't mean abandoning yourself. It took everything falling apart to see it. An empty house on Christmas morning. A note from my only daughter, cold as the winter wind outside. "You're not coming with us, Dad. We need this time together. And don't worry, you can afford it." I replayed those words for weeks, letting them gnaw at me. I set the note beside the untouched cinnamon rolls, the unopened gifts, the blinking tree lights that now seemed to mock me. For days, I wandered my house like a ghost, searching for echoes of the family I thought I knew. But when I finally opened Amanda's forgotten phone and saw their group chat, saw myself reduced to ATM, saw the jokes and plans and calculations, I realized the truth. I'd spent years paying for my own loneliness. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal, it was admitting my role in it. I trained everyone around me to expect rescue, to count on my forgiveness no matter the cost. I'd thought love meant always saying yes. I was wrong. So I did the unthinkable. I said no. I canceled the cards, called in the loans, drew boundaries I should have set years ago. I watched as panic replaced entitlement, as the safety net unraveled. I heard the anger, the pleas, the accusations. "You're heartless, Dad. We're family." And for once, I didn't cave. I won't pretend it was easy. There were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, missing Amanda's laughter, missing the noise and chaos and messy, beautiful illusion of family. There were mornings when the silence pressed so hard I thought I'd collapse under it. But slowly, something shifted. I filled the quiet with music, with new routines, with things I'd neglected for years. I baked cinnamon bread, not for anyone else, but for myself. I joined Rachel's book club, let strangers become friends, let laughter return to my kitchen, not forced, not bought, but freely given. I learned the difference between being needed and being valued, between rescuing people and letting them own their mistakes. I learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for others is to let consequences unfold. If you're listening to this and you see yourself in my story, please hear this. Love is not obligation. Forgiveness is not endless. You have the right to protect your peace, your resources, your dignity. Family is supposed to be a place of safety, not a source of manipulation or debt. It's okay to say no. It's okay to walk away from relationships that only drain you, to refuse to be an ATM, a doormat, a silent benefactor. You are more than what you can provide. You are worthy of love that doesn't keep score, respect that doesn't depend on your balance sheet. The lesson I learned, the one I hope you carry with you, is that boundaries are not barriers to love. They are the framework that lets love survive. Justice, sometimes, is simply protecting your own heart. My house is still quiet sometimes. There are still moments when memory pricks at me, when I see Amanda's childhood ornament or pass the old photo of Jason and me smiling before it all went wrong. But I don't feel empty anymore. I feel free. I look at my calendar now, filled with art classes, hiking trips, dinners with friends. I see a future I get to choose, a life not built out of obligation, but out of joy. If this story touched you, or if you're fighting your own battle for respect and self-worth, leave a comment below. Share your story, your struggle, your victory. Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories of resilience, healing, and real justice. And remember, you are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to start over. You are allowed, no matter how late it seems, to be free. The adventure, finally, is mine to write, and it can be yours too. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next chapter.